Mainstream mental health is flawed, and I'm pulling back the curtain. I'm Andrea Clark, a former family therapist who walked away from the system to expose the truth. After my own journey from medication maze to holistic healing, I'm here to challenge the status quo and reveal the mental health truths most people don't know. The truth about mental health is your radical roadmap to wellness. Raw stories, expert insights, breakthrough solutions. This is where traditional modalities end and real healing begins. Nina Marie Rueda is a traditionally trained naturopathic doctor who focuses on women's and kids' health. She helps your family grow without big pharma, whether you need help getting and staying pregnant or because your child is dealing with chronic eczema, constipation, ADHD, or autism. You can be sure that she will not be giving you the same one-size symptom-suppressing approach you may have gotten before. All right, welcome, Nina Marie. I am so excited that you are here. I've actually been waiting, looking at the date, like it's coming up to do this particular interview because I think the things that you're going to share are going to be
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Yay. Okay, cool. So before we even get into some of the questions that I have about, minerals and mental health and children specifically, and even things like, eczema, allergy, right? Inflammation, all of that. I'd love to just hear a little bit about your practice and what you do and how you support families.
Yeah. So I currently work with children or women in the perinatal time.
Okay.
For a long time, my practice was split maybe like 75-25 adult to child. And now it's probably, if not 50-50, I have more kids than I do adults. And it started this way because my own journey into healthcare for women in fertility, women in pregnancy, women in postpartum was specifically through postpartum care because of the lack of care I received from my own medical care team.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to see that changed. I saw how not only myself, but friends, family members, women have all this support for fertility, all this support for pregnancy. And then once you have your baby, you get a 6-week checkup and that's about it, unless something's terribly wrong.
Yes.
And so I started working with postpartum moms and did a ton of training with labs and all of the things. And eventually those moms would ask me questions about their kids. And so then I started to deep dive into pediatric care and pediatric health and taking courses around that, reading textbooks around it. I'm a certified nerd and I love to deep dive in all of the things. So it started with just wanting to see postpartum care change.
Yeah.
And not see the symptoms and concerns that moms have minimized.
Yes.
And from there, seeing that their concerns for their child, their infant or toddler was being minimized and supporting them there. And now we have a wonderful practice able to support families.
This is so powerful. I think back to my own postpartum story and journey. And if I would have had this support that you're offering, I think things could have looked a lot different, right? I had postpartum anxiety. My daughter was having these really crazy skin issues. And it just, traditional medicine just was not really helping us find answers. And it was really stressful. It was really, really stressful.
I think the hardest part is when you aren't believed or what your concerns are, not necessarily not believed, but oh, this is no big deal.
Oh, this is just a part of it.
Yes.
Yes.
And so seeing that, oh, this is just life. That's your toddler's not going to sleep, or kids have eczema all the time, any of those things. And not realizing that common does not equate to normalcy is where I think a lot of the problems stem from.
Absolutely. And I experienced a lot of this with other women. I practiced as a therapist for 13 years and I saw a lot of postpartum moms. Deal and it gets to the point for some people where they don't want to actually tell their practitioner what they're experiencing because they don't want to be told that they need to go on medication and the answer. They already know that's going to be the answer and that's not what they want. And so they're I'm not even going to say anything.
Which is so sad. That your experience has to be hidden because you know that the response to your experience is one that could potentially make your experience worse or the response is, you're a new mom, you've lacked sleep, or here is a medication, where they don't, I won't say, I don't like blanket statements or generalities.
Totally.
In my experience with the clients that I've worked with, many have shared that their physician or prescribing physician wasn't sharing about potential side effects, or if they came back complaining about side effects, it was just a dosing change or a medication change. And there wasn't any really digging deep into what could be going on. Or maybe so I've learned, I've taken several courses on genetics, and I'm learning on how you can have a genetics test when there's mental health concerns to find out if you will actually respond well or poorly to different medications. And so if physicians are able to utilize that kind of information, then you can know right off the bat, hey, this person's going to do terrible with this script. Let's think of other things that we could bring in to help support them. And then also taking a step back before running to your script is, why is this happening in this person's body? Because that's not supposed to happen in the human body at all. And how do we address where the imbalances are to try to give the body what it needs to function as it's designed to?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I'm also curious, I'd love, when we're done with this, I'd love to see if you could point me to the information.
Absolutely.
Genetic test for,
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'll have a heyday on the podcast with that. So, so let's talk about kiddos. And one of the things that you were referred to me by another mineral testing practitioner, and I was devouring your content, and something that I really appreciated was you talking a lot about ADHD symptoms and minerals.
Yes.
In kids. And I would love to talk more about that, because we have a lot of kiddos who are experiencing a lot of ADHD symptoms, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there's so much more to sort through before you even consider a medication, right?
Yes. So this is interesting. I'm going to start with a story, or like an experience. I have 3 children, and my middle child, my husband, since he was 10 months old, maybe a year and a half at most, was like, I think this kid, there's something off. And I was a little more like, let's see. It could be, I'm not going to deny that there might be, but it could also just be that he's a 12-month, 14-month-old boy. I don't want to rush to a potential problem, right? So for a long time, we just watched, monitored, how do we redirect things? I have this memory burned in my mind. He was 18 months old, and we used to have to lock the pantry because he would go in there when no one was watching and just devour everything that he could get his hands on. He would go to the fridge and devour everything. And we always wondered, is this hunger? It can't be hunger. There's some sensory things here.
Yes.
Eventually, some of our experiences with this child was that he started to grow irritable and then aggressive, and then he started becoming violent. So by age 4, I want to say, I met a chiropractor when we were still living in Chicago who works with children on the spectrum. And by age 4, I remembered I had met him a year earlier, and my husband and I were talking. And one of the things that one of us said, I can't remember if it was him or me, was, I am concerned that if we don't do anything now, our son could be a problem for society as an adult.
Yeah.
So we started to just, I knew a lot of things. We ate really well. He slept really well. But there was something off. So we went to this chiropractor, started working with him. And within a couple of months, it was night and day difference. And just working on central nervous system things. Once school was introduced into the mix, we had the problems with focus, the problems with sitting still. He would 10, 15 minutes and then, okay, go outside and run and play. He just needed that kind of structure. And so recently we had him genetic tested specifically for some SNPs related to ADHD, and several of them came back positive. And the biggest help in that, I mentioned this all of this for anyone potentially listening is that this testing allows for me to know, one, could medication be helpful? In my son's case, absolutely not. It shows like it would be a terrible idea. But it also gives me the like nutrients to focus on, the nutrients that are involved in neurotransmitters and whether or not he has genetic SNPs related to those nutrients as well, which helps me to understand not only am I going to need to focus on these foods that have these nutrients in it, but he's likely going to need high dosing supplementation, if not for the rest of his life, then at the very least when he's under times of stress, which in pediatric health, your like growth and development is a stressor on your body.
Yeah.
So in childhood, these supplements for him are like within a few days, it was a night and day difference with how we were doing school, how he was responding to his siblings, how he was responding to me and my husband previously with like anger, frustration, yelling, becoming so overwhelmed with his own frustration and emotions that he could not handle or know how to speak or respond to just sitting still, being kind, offering to do things for his siblings. Mom, can I help you with this? Can I go get something from the car for you? I can go outside and rake the leaves. Just a different child. Yeah, it's a different child. And the only thing that we did was optimize what nutrients he needed, specifically what minerals he needed. And so having that kind of information, now, not everyone has $1 million to drop on a genetics test, right? So having the information on what minerals are involved in different neurotransmitters can be helpful, that you can just move into, okay, if I know that these are the things that help the brain work the best, then let's just try to bring these things in and watch and wait.
So do you use this genetic test in your practice?
I do. Yes.
Oh, I'm coming to see you. So let's break this down for somebody who's never really been exposed to this concept, right? Because I understood that we all have minerals, like we all need minerals, but I think even up until like a year ago, or maybe, like a year and a half ago, I didn't understand how profound specific mineral deficiencies can affect you, right? And I mean, that's for me as a woman, right? But it makes sense. Like children are humans too. So it's going to apply to them. And also, like certain gene mutations are going to play a role in this process as well, right? And so I'd love for you to just dive into that a little bit with explaining some things about the minerals and like how they affect kiddos and their mental health and neurotransmitters and things like that. If
Absolutely.
you do that. Okay.
Absolutely. So surface level, easy for anyone to grasp information. There are minerals that are sedatives or calming to the central nervous system. Calcium is one of them, magnesium is one of them, and zinc is one of them. And then there are mineral elements that are more excitatory. Copper is one of them. Phosphorus is one of them. And then heavy metals are also elements that can be excitatory. The reason that understanding that is important is because when you get a minerals test, sometimes some of the levels look really good and some of the level look not so good or maybe below optimal. But the relationships between those calming and sedative versus the excitatory elements can be what's at play. And so the central nervous system is controlling the whole body, right? And how the central nervous system responds to stress, like there's one thing that happens. You perceive stress, you see stress, you feel stress, and then your brain tells your body fight or flight. And so whether that stressor is external in what we're looking at, seeing, or thinking we're seeing, or internal with pathogens or dysbiosis, etc., there's one stress response, and we want the body to be able to, yes, have a stress response, but then come back out of it because we shouldn't live there forever.
Yes.
So with ADHD specifically, I can't tell you how low calcium, magnesium, and zinc often are, or there's typically an imbalance between those and those excitatory ones. So calcium and phosphorus are the ones that we look at for what's happening with your central nervous system. Calcium helps it to like slow down, chill out. Phosphorus helps it to respond quickly, and that you need both. Sometimes we have enough phosphorus, but not enough calcium, and that will make the central nervous system just operate too quickly or too hyperactive. And so bringing in the calcium can be helpful. I mentioned this one because there's a lot of people when there's a concern with their child, one of the appropriate and normal responses is to look at food. And a very popular decision is, let's go gluten-free or dairy-free. And if we're going dairy-free in particular, that is the food that gives us the most available calcium per 100 grams compared to anything else. It doesn't matter that things like almonds or dark leafy greens may technically have more calcium per 100 grams compared to dairy foods, but those foods are often bound to things that don't allow our body to absorb all of that calcium. And so we don't get it all. We end up either peeing or pooping it out. And so eliminating calcium is a really big dairy source that's lost. So that, calcium source that's lost. And so that's where I'm a little hesitant. Like if we don't have to get rid of that, let's not, because those nutrients are really important. Magnesium is often very, very low, that you could have problems. I'll start here. Any stressor is going to quickly burn your magnesium stores. And so a child with ADHD, in many studies, they're often, if not always, shown to have less magnesium levels, not only in hair, but also in blood. And so helping them to ensure that they have enough magnesium is key. One of the biggest changes that you could make is if your child drinks any soda, like immediately stopping that, because the phosphorus and the phosphoric acid from that soda is going to bind to any magnesium and then deplete your body of magnesium when it's consumed. And then not only that, this is where like whole food sources of different nutrients are best, because they have these synergistic elements that the body needs to utilize that element well. And we know that in nature, glucose, I believe it is, molecules are paired, like a single glucose molecule is paired with like 35, 36 magnesium molecules, because that's how much the human body needs of magnesium to be able to process that glucose accurately or well. When we have sugary drinks or processed drinks, those elements like magnesium are depleted. And so you're just left with this glucose. And when that consumption takes place, it now steals that magnesium from your storage in your body. And so we have further depletion just because of that drink. And so making switch from processed foods to whole foods is definitely going to be helpful. But even then, testing is where we want to consider for optimization when it comes to supplements. And so looking at sedative minerals like calcium, magnesium, zinc would be really helpful, making sure there's a balance between those and some other elements, because they all work together. They're not in isolation. They have relationships that partner with other elements, or those are called synergistic relationships, or they have relationships where they are enemies and they combat one another. So those antagonistic relationships, you want to ensure you have enough to keep those things in balance. Otherwise, you end up with someone who has a magnesium deficiency and they're missing out on like peaceful, uninterrupted rest. Or if they have a zinc deficiency, you don't have those relaxed evenings at bedtime, because zinc is necessary for the conversion of different neurotransmitters. And so helping the body have those nutrients lets the rest of the body do what it's supposed to do.
Anxiety, mood swings, brain fog, hormonal chaos. Before you blame stress or just being a woman, have you checked your mineral levels? Minerals are the foundation of your mental health and hormones. Magnesium, zinc, copper, and iron control everything from your mood and energy to your cycle and stress response. But most women are walking around depleted, and they don't even know it. Here's the truth. Birth control, stress, and even pregnancy can drain your minerals, leaving you feeling anxious, exhausted, and out of balance. But no one's testing for it. When I got tested, I found several key minerals were significantly out of balance, even though I eat well and I take excellent care of myself. It was a wake-up call that changed everything for me and my health. You don't need to just deal with it. You need to get balanced. A simple at-home mineral test can give you real answers, so you can stop guessing and start healing at the root. Check out hormonehealingrd.com and use code MHM20 for $20 off your test today. You can also check the show notes for links and codes. I know you talk a lot about eczema. We talk about the autism spectrum, right?
Yes.
And that's ADHD. Those are like your main things you kind of talk about.
Yes.
Could you touch on anxiety? Because I feel like anxiety kind of lives in the same family.
Mm-hmm.
ADHD. I mean, that's my experience as a family therapist.
Mm-hmm.
It really is kind of a spectrum. Like it's not exactly the same, but it's like a spectrum of similar mechanisms.
Yes.
Do you feel like you're versed enough to be able to touch on that at all?
I can say this.
Okay.
A lot of the elements necessary for supporting anyone with ADHD are the same elements that I'm considering for anxiety as well. I'm actually going to look up. I have a pattern for ADHD and a pattern for anxiety on the HTMA, and I can show you which one's share which one's the overlap.
Pattern meaning you see this kind of over and over and over.
These are the elements I'm going to look for.
Yeah.
So, I've researched every single marker on a hair tissue mineral analysis in relation to different concerns, health problems, etc. With ADHD, magnesium is often low. Copper is either really high or really low. It's imbalanced. It could be either one. Zinc is low. Iron can be low. And then there are several heavy metals that might be present. Arsenic is one of them. Mercury is one of them. Aluminum's another one. And I think lead. When it comes to anxiety, calcium is low, magnesium is low, copper is high, zinc is low, iron is low, and then you have these metals as well. And so this is where it's like when you have someone who two people can have the same diagnoses and have different things to get there. You may have two people have the same things going on, but they end up in a different place.
Yeah, manifest a little differently.
Exactly. And so with mineral balancing, you may see some of these similar markers occurring because again, a lot of the things that help the body relax are missing and things that may help support your body to know when to run, to know when to fight, etc. There's either too much of them or there just isn't anything to help keep them in check. One of the nutrients that definitely involved in both of them is lithium. And so lithium I have used this is not necessarily recommended long term, but I've used lithium with clients who are pregnant, especially if they
lithium orotate, the supplement.
Yes, ma'am. Not the high dose pharmaceutical lithium.
I've taken lithium orotate before. It's been incredible. Like I've needed to take it for 6 months after a thing specific happening, and it's been very powerful and helpful.
I had one client who was struggling with panic attacks on and off for years, and she was so sweet to work with. And one of the things that we saw in her test was that her lithium wasn't even detectable. And so we started with a really low dose, 1 milligram, which is crazy low. We ended up getting up to 10 milligrams for her. And I remember once we were up to 10, we had a follow-up a week later after her increase. And she said, I feel like I'm a different person. I go up to people. I talk to them. I have no problem whatsoever. My panic attacks are gone. And like one nutrient was able to do that for her. And so sometimes it's not even an elaborate protocol. It's just optimizing a specific element that your body needs. And you can see a world of a difference.
Okay. So, I don't know if you'll feel comfortable speaking to this, but what's the difference between taking a medication, for example, lithium as a medication versus lithium orotate, the actual like mineral, right?
Yes. So pharmaceutical lithium is very, very high dosed, like hundreds of milligrams. When we are looking at low dose lithium orotate, this is nutritional lithium. And so these are elements that you would find in food. You should find in your water. And so this is where, just a quick aside, like paying attention to like your local water municipality report to see what elements are in your water or what toxins or toxicants are present is helpful. If you are someone who has some water filtration, ensuring that it's not filtering everything out or what is being filtered out. This is where post-filter testing can be helpful. If you have reverse osmosis, that's going to take absolutely everything out. You need to be sure that you're remineralizing and getting adequate amounts of those elements, either in food or through supplementation with like trace mineral drops. And so low dose lithium is the amounts should be equatable to what you would be getting through food and water, whereas pharmaceutical would be way above and beyond that.
Well, and okay, so with pharmaceutical, it's not necessarily replenishing your lithium levels at the root either.
Yes, also true, because I believe that the pharmaceuticals, they are using lithium carbonate. So when you have a mineral supplement, you have the element itself, but it needs to be bound to an amino acid of sorts in order for your body to use it. Lithium carbonate, any type of mineral element that has carbonate as the thing it's bound to, is one of the worst things that you could potentially absorb. Lithium orotate is more absorbable as well. And so you have these lower amounts that your body can utilize and store away if needed, as opposed to carbonate being used in that moment, and whatever is not being used, you're going to eliminate.
Yes. And could we talk about the store away part? Because I think that's something that I think is hard for people to understand. So like I've been on mineral protocols, and then it's like I don't have to take a certain thing anymore. Because the combination of things that I'm doing have helped essentially where now I'm able to like pull from stores, or my mechanisms are working to where I'm absorbing enough to where it's like I don't need to keep supplementing that particular mineral or whatever.
Yes. So I always let clients know my goal is to get you off of any of the supplements I recommend as soon as possible.
Right.
Because you should be able to sustain a healthy body and mind with your food and lifestyle, not being dependent on supplements or pharmaceuticals. Now, I gave the example of my son where I'm like, you might need this long-term or in times of high stress. That's something that you want to have in your back pocket. But he has even gone a few weeks without any supplementation, and we've been fine. It's not we see an uptick that we're like, okay, maybe we should bring some things back in. All that to say, an illustration I use with my clients is think of your body as a shopping mall or a store. You've got shelves that need to be filled, and you've got a shelf for lithium. You have a shelf for calcium. You have a shelf for XYZ. Your daily living, or in pregnancy and breastfeeding your baby, is going to be taking things from those shelves. And the currency that you need in order to pay for what is taken is what you are consuming. And so we need to be able to ensure that we as the store owner are coming in and bringing in and making sure that those shelves are well stocked and not left bare. And so in a mineral balancing protocol, the goal is to see the shelves well stocked. And then as you are just going on with daily life, eating food that is good and nourishing for you, when something is used, it's put right back. You shouldn't need magnesium supplementation every day for the rest of your life. I had someone send me a message recently on Instagram like, hey, I take this much magnesium every day and I've done it for this long. And is it possible that you could have too much magnesium? And I was like, ma'am, yes, it is. It absolutely is. And so just knowing like you can overdo these things because eventually the storage sites are full, and you should not need to continue bringing in these elements at these high doses. The reason that we have those things on the shelves is so that it can be used and then replenished. It's the building up and breaking down that our body does every single day.
Mm-hmm. This is fascinating. And I'm curious your thoughts on why this is not built into like for kids specific pediatric practices, like in mainstream. I mean, these are building blocks to our bodies, like functionality. Like this is so fascinating to me that I, as a therapist, didn't learn about this, like even just on a basic level, right? You know, that I've never heard any traditional doctor speak about this.
Well, this gets into the realm of who is creating the curriculum. If we're honest, so let me not even go to the point where you could get into conspiracy theories about things, right? Like if we're honest,
just so you know. Yes.
But if we're honest, like nutrition sciences are new.
Yeah.
And if we're honest, nutrition sciences change. And so to give my local medical doctor a break, I will have integrity and say that when it comes to nutrition, like we're always learning new things. So I will at least concede that. However, if my child can note when he doesn't feel well because of the food that he's consumed, or when he feels better with certain foods, I think that an adult should be able to at least concede that that's possible too, right? That you can't just eat whatever you want. And they kind of learned this. I just don't think that it's emphasized. There's so much other stuff that is emphasized. Like they learned protein is broken down into amino acids. Amino acids are then going to go and build your tissues and your neurotransmitters and your immune cells and all of the things. And that's where it's left. Here's some basic biology. But then here's disease, and here's how we treat disease. There isn't much prevention of said diseases. And why that is the case, and I feel like if I knew that answer, I would be a bajillionaire.
I know. That's part of why we're here having this class.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that people can get this information freely and then take the steps that they see fit, right?
Yes.
So I would love if you'd be willing just to touch on eczema, because I'm actually, even though we don't consider eczema something specific to mental health, I actually think it actually can affect mental health a lot because of what you're dealing with. Like my daughter has eczema and also has like some sort of scalp eczema, something like she's getting dandruff, but it's like not the stereotypical dandruff. She's dealing with the kids at school, giving her a hard time, right? And she's itchy and she's uncomfortable. And that is affecting her mental health and just her overall well-being and ability to focus on what's important.
I have, if there is one condition when it comes to the kids that I see in practice that I see the most of, it's going to be eczema.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many parents that I've worked with, and they're like, it's not just the child's mental health, it's the parent's mental health as well.
It's always on my mind.
Yes.
Always on my mind.
And it grieves you. Well, I'll think of two things. So I had one client, her son's eczema. It was so heartbreaking. It was head to toe. He was maybe 5 months, and it was big, large flakes that would come off his face. He was constantly bleeding and itching. And she's like, I can't even go out to the playground with him because I'm afraid of what other people will say, or people have said XYZ. And so there is a real, at the very least, mental load that eczema can have on a parent. And then you're wondering, like, what is it that I need to be doing to help give my child clear skin? Is it something I'm eating? Is it something I did in pregnancy that I didn't do in pregnancy? Should I have, your brain just goes everywhere.
Yeah. She, when she was it was like before 6 months, she had this huge patch here, and it would like weep, and it would kind of come open, and I was I was like, what do I do to fix this? I was obsessive because it was like so uncomfortable for her, and I felt like, oh my gosh, is she okay? I mean, it was just, and so I can only imagine with that other mother, you know what I mean? It's like, it's all consuming.
But not only is the all consuming on like, how do I get my baby better? I had another client who she was also in the like mental load, how do I get my baby better? But her son was up all the time, itching. And so she's losing sleep. And so you have not only the mental load of my child being chronically ill, you now have the physical load of losing all of your sleep because you're trying to comfort your chronically ill child. And both of you are not doing well. And then that takes an impact on the rest of your family. And so there's just this huge domino effect when there is any chronic illness for sure in a child. But in this specific case with eczema, there's just, how do I bring relief? And it can be so hard to figure out what is necessary for your child's relief. Some of those same elements that I mentioned for ADHD.
And that it's all kind of overlapping, right?
It does. Because what's happening is the central nervous system, it's out of whack, and it's going to manifest in different ways. And in a kid with eczema, the central nervous system needs to calm down, but its manifestation is an overactive immune response. And so you see, again, removal of dairy is one of the biggest things. And like, your body needs calcium.
I'm guilty with low dairy for, in the past. Yeah.
Which, in the beginning, if that helps calm symptoms down, I'm like, cool, let's do it. You guys need relief. Like, the body needs to have relief from that. But my goal is like, we need to be able to bring that back in without a response. Yeah. For sure. Some other elements, like for calcium specifically, I was thinking through a workshop that I did recently. I was diving into what are the mineral elements not responsible. How are they involved in our bodies, in our skin's like repair of itself? Calcium specifically has some really cool like hands in it. So it has a role in skin cell differentiation. So there's different layers in your skin. You have a role in transepidermal water loss. And so oftentimes you're losing all of the moisture in the skin, which is why some individuals, like, it's weeping because it's trying to hold on as much as possible. It regulates the fat in your skin, which is necessary as a protective barrier, helpful, or it has a role in wound healing, and it can help support that immune response. So just calcium alone, like, there's so much involvement in the skin. I remember reading about how calcium helps your keratinocytes or keratinocytes, depending on who you talk to, which are different skin cells. Like if we see that there's an injury over here in this part of your body, calcium helps to channel those cells to where that injury is for wound healing. And so you see how this one element has multi roles in skin health. Zinc is like a repairman that heals wounds. Magnesium, again, that stress soother to like calm the immune response down. Selenium to protect against oxidation, because oftentimes it's like your skin is so sensitive to the environment, and selenium helps to calm that sensitivity down. Copper here can actually support collagen production. And so often I've seen more often than not, kids with eczema have low copper levels than high. And I think that helping to support that with food first, usually I almost never supplement with copper. So food and like vitamin C, they help each other for absorption, and vitamin C helps with that collagen growth as well, or production as well. So there's a lot of mineral elements that I look at when it comes to skin conditions on an HTMA2.
This is fascinating. Do you find, so one of the questions that popped in my mind is, do you find that parents get overwhelmed with the idea like of having to do a protocol for their child? Can it be fairly straightforward for them? Because I know certain minerals can't be taken together, right? And so we've got different times of day. And I'm just wondering, at that point, are parents like, it doesn't matter, I'll do whatever? Or do they sometimes feel overwhelmed?
I think it depends on the case of the child. So I had one client with an eczema case. Oh, I have a like general protocol that I'm like, hey, try to use this while we're waiting for test results, but you guys can have some relief. This case was so fascinating. The kid was maybe a year and a half and had terrible eczema for at least a year. And all we did was bring in 3 supplements while we were waiting for test results. And mom was like, 2 days later, his body is clear. And I was like, well, I know. I'm like, so we have these results. And I'm like, there's some things that we could address here, but clearly these are helping the body do what it needs to do. But I was like, do not pursue anything else. Like we are seeing a clear like resolution. Those nutrients are going to help resolve what we see over here anyway. So just go on with those 3 things. I've had other clients where you've got to wrap the skin in a wet cloth and you're taking supplements 16 times a day. And I'm like, we need to simplify this as much as possible, because that's also going to drive you crazy. But what I do with clients, one of 2 options, 90-ish% of my clientele, we are working with a lab to customize a supplement so that you've got one thing to monitor, maybe 2 other things if digestion needs some extra support. And that's all we want to do. Like, I want to make your life as easy as possible. The other 10%, it depends on like the level of sensitivity. So if this is a child who has severe food allergies, always responds negatively to supplements, then we need to do individual, because I want to be able to monitor. If you do have a negative response, I know exactly what it was too, versus there's 17 things in this thing and I'm not sure which one you're responding to. So it can be either one, depending on the severity of the child or the case in general.
Okay. So I have a feeling that, you know, there's going to be a lot of people who listen who are going to go and check out your practice. For the people who maybe aren't there yet, or maybe that's not on their, like, you know, they have to save up for that, or, you know, whatever. Are there any just general things that parents can do to, and I know that's kind of a loaded question, but are there any just some like basic places to start if they can't get a test yet, right? Or they can't work with somebody yet? Are there some things that they could do?
Yes, absolutely.
Things forward for their children?
Yes. Number 1, your foundations are clean air, clean food, clean water. If you don't have these things in place, when you're working with me, I'm going to tell you, you need to fix these things. Why spend money on tests and supplements if it's not going to undo what not clean air, not clean water, not clean food is doing? So this is utilizing something like the Dirty Dozen list, staying away from those, only buying those organic. Really helpful. An inexpensive tool for like non-organic foods would be Therasage's ozone bubbler. It's like $100. I use this with the fruit and vegetables that I buy that are not organic. I also use this with the meat that I buy that may not be like pasture raised or whatever, because when you are ozoning your food, it helps to eliminate any sterilants, any hormones in meats, any pesticides, etc., bacteria, blah, 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 so that you can have clean food. So an inexpensive tool would be an ozone doubler. For water filtration is so important. And this again is go back to your local municipality water report, find out they have it for the previous year, should have it for the previous calendar year. Find out what was present and then find out what wasn't present. And that helps you to choose what filter you actually need. So if I lived in Oregon, I'm pretty sure Oregon doesn't fluoridate their water. I wouldn't need the filter that has a fluoride filter in it because it's not going to be my water, right? So having that kind of knowledge helps you to make a better decision when it comes to water filtration. And then clean air. This is where making sure if like you own your home, having your HVAC and all of your ducts cleaned can be really helpful. Paying attention to any water damage that may have been in the past. Having a moisture meter underneath like sinks behind a washer just to be able to catch any possible leaks. All of that would be really important. And not to fall into the trap of thinking that if I don't see mold isn't present, because it can very much be hidden. So if there's any breathing issues, that's a big clue. Any problems with children in particular, if there's a urinating at night, they're starting to bed wet, even though they're potty trained, that oftentimes is a result of mold because it'll lower our antidiuretic hormone. And so there's clues on whether or not we need some help with clean air. Having great air filters can be a benefit there too. So those are the things that I would pursue before any extra testing on a basic general level for health.
I mean, that's an incredible place to start. And I'll tell you guys, I rent by choice. And so we have air filters. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like we can't always do the same things that owners can do. So we have other things in place to protect our air and things like that, right? So you can't, even if you don't own your home, like there's things that you can do to protect your health that way. Okay, what about like vitamins, multivitamins, kids multi-mineral, supplements? Like, are those things even effective?
Maybe. So just anyone who's listening, I am a person who cannot make black and white answers.
Yeah, totally. I respect.
It's so hard for me. And my husband also, he tells me that I'm a duct tape, but like I have to like hold everything. I can't polarize. So maybe we use a multivitamin with our kids. And so it's not the best. There's a couple things that I'm like, I wish this wasn't in it, but there's not one better. It can help fill in the gaps when I have clients that are picky eaters, or when I have parents whose children that are picky eaters, typically in the beginning, I'm like, I want to help optimize his nutrition or her nutrition quickly. And while we're working on picky eating and things that we can do to help your child to become a more adventurous eater, aside from mineral balancing, because that's really helpful, but like things that you can do as a family and how you prepare for mealtime, bringing in a support like a multi or a kid's fatty acid support, like those are going to be really important to help bring up nutrient levels, because picky eaters typically have really low levels or diverse levels at the very least. And so they can be helpful. The concern with them is that many of the nutrients in any multi that you can get over the counter can be synthetic. And so if it's not whole food based, or there's even food grown nutrients, then the usability of those nutrients is very low. So it can fill in the gaps when you need it to fill in gaps, but we need to be this is where like education on reading labels and understanding what you're reading is really helpful. I'm pretty sure I have a workshop for parents on that. So you can like pick up a label and not feel like you're being tested on an SAT or something, just to know what's there. And then to know, the other thing that you should know is, as helpful as that thing is, it may have too much of something that your child needs or too little of something that your child needs. And so with clients that I have recommended a multi to, I've also been like, but you need more B vitamins or this specific element. So we want to bring this in food every single day, or we want to add this extra thing on the side. So it can be helpful. Generally speaking, it's not going to be what most people need. There are likely holes that it has, or it's just going to lead to really expensive pee.
Yeah, this is an interesting answer. It's definitely more in the gray than, so I was working with somebody a couple of years ago and we were getting my mineral levels balanced, and she's like, these designer like supplements with multiple things in them. She's like, I'm completely against them because they might not be giving you enough of what you need in a certain mineral or a certain vitamin, or they might be giving you too much, right? You want to have protocols that are tailored to you. While I understand what she's saying, I was like, okay, but there's a lot of people who can't always afford to see somebody or, to get all of the individual minerals, right? Like in supplementation or whatever it is. I'm like, so is it at least a good bridge for people is what I've always been curious about.
Oh, absolutely can be. I would pay attention to the label. It's like, if there's a quick tip that I can give the listener is your label should have foods listed somewhere and like where those nutrients were derived from. If foods are not listed, put that one back on the shelf and find another one that is. Yeah, that's the easiest tip that I could give without it becoming too complicated.
Yeah, of course. It can be overwhelming when you're first learning about these things. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, they need to start with Whole Foods, the Dirty Dozen list, which is easy. You guys just go Google Dirty Dozen.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? They can get the ozone bubbler, which is like a pretty low investment, water. And then I'm assuming you have some, like you've mentioned workshops. So I'm assuming you have educational materials, some maybe free or low cost resources on your website.
Yes.
Okay, amazing. So for people who are listening, they want to dive in and educate themselves further, they can go to your website, which will be linked in the show notes, you guys. Any other like starter tips?
Don't be scared. Don't become frazzled. Don't feel like you have to do a million things. Start with one thing. My family was changed because I was like, I'm going to change my breakfast. Breakfast is going to look like this from now on. And that's where I start with a lot of my clients who I'm like, we've got a lot of transformation to make. Let's just start with breakfast. Breakfast sets up the rest of your day. And if you can focus on one meal and let the other ones fall as they will, eventually you have the like muscle built to add those things that you're doing with breakfast into your other meals. And so start with how your family is eating. Are you sitting together at the table, not distracted? Because your parasympathetic state allows for your body to actually absorb the nutrients from your food when you're relaxed and eating and not sitting in front of a TV or driving or on the go. Those types of things really make huge impact on your health that I wouldn't overlook them for a fancy test or a fancy supplement. Because the fancy test and the fancy supplement isn't going to carry you day to day. How you are eating, what you are eating, where you are eating, all of those things do. And that will definitely be more cost effective than always having to pursue another test or supplement or thing, or gadget, whatever. Focus on what is my day-to-day rhythm? How can I make a better choice with the meal that I have in front of me? And then becoming in tune with how your body feels, and not just trying to suppress how you don't like the way it feels. And go from there.
I love that. So one thing I'm hearing is really the foundation of all of this is just your basic day-to-day lifestyle.
Absolutely. Yes.
This is something that I keep in all the people I interview and also all my own research and my own healing journey. It's starting with the most foundational things that people, it's like almost seems dumb, like silly, like, oh, okay, that's gonna really make that big of a deal in my mental health or my physical health or my, and I'm like, no, like these are the things first that will actually create a tsunami wave of wellness in your mental health, your physical health, your kids' mental and physical health. And it's the most free and fundamental, not always free, but you know what I mean? Like sunlight and sunlight and air and people, we've moved so far away from that. And it's like, that's the thing that is start with that. You will see a catastrophic difference most of it.
Yes. And I also think like part of why our bodies aren't operating well is because we aren't living like humans should live. Like we're meant for fun, joyous community. We're not meant to be isolated. We're not meant to be inside of a building all day long. Like being outside is necessary for human health. And so because we have forsaken, abandoned, ignored, whatever adjective you want to use there, because we don't do those things, the human body is now lacking what it needs to thrive. And so if we can correct that first, I'm confident that a lot of things would resolve on its own.
Yes.
Clean air, clean food, clean water. that helps so much. Many of the clients that I've worked with, when we're doing testing and, oh gosh, your test is showing a whole lot of mold. Great. We did this expensive test, but had we just looked at environment previously or considered environment previously, you would not have needed this test and this protocol and all the things. Oh gosh, I had a client where she had terrible liver issues for years. And I finally convinced her, can we please test your water? Because she lived in some facility. She's like, we're not going to find anything. We found so much coming in her water that I was truly, if we can just correct things. And I'm doing research on all the things that are coming up in her water and how they affect the liver. And so having these tools to make sure that our basic needs are met truly sets up everything else to work as it should.
I love that we're having this conversation. I think this is going to be so helpful for people. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else before we close this out. I think this is a great place to stop. I think I really want to encourage everybody listening to go check out, what is the name of your practice?
Olive Wellness Group.
I love that. Okay, so you guys, there's going to be her website linked in the show notes. Go check out Olive Wellness Group. Go devour her content. Where can they find you on Instagram?
My handle is Dr. Nina Marie. Doctor is the full word. It's not abbreviated. And my website is the same.
Okay, awesome. So all of that's going to be linked in the show notes. And I am so thankful for you and this conversation. I learned so much and I can't wait for people to hear this and just go learn from you further beyond this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a whole lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you. I am eternally grateful you tuned into The Truth About Mental Health. If this message matters to you, please spread the word by subscribing, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with someone who needs this knowledge. Let's keep reclaiming our mental health together.